Jonathan is already offering a P2B a ministerial position to drop his ambition, and all this is targeted at stopping the man Tinubu by the northern figures. Because we understand even the former governor of Jigawa State, talking about Sule Lamido, made it very clear that the best option for PDP in 2027 is former President Goodluck Jonathan. However, I think Tinubu himself is not leaving anything to chance, because we are seeing a new strategy coming from him, or rather through the INEC. For the first time, INEC want to checkmate the rigging in the north. Perhaps because the president have known that the north always have the number. And we understand that the hallmark of the north is always using underage people to vote. And secondly, there are instances where it is alleged that foreigners find their way to the northern part of the country to vote in Nigerian election. That is why even currently we are seeing a situation where, of course, INEC have come out to warn that in their year to commence continual voter registration that will start on the 18th of this month, that anything that has to do with underage registration and multiple registration will not be tolerated. Of course, they have read the Right Act and they have made people to know that it comes with consequence and punishment as it is against the law. And this, understand, is to checkmate the underage registration and voting that hitherto before now happens in the northern part of the country. Particularly, they are making people to understand that the automated biometric identification system have the capacity to identify multiple voting. That's why I told you that a Tinubu is not leaving anything to chance. But before we go further, let us bring you the news leading to this. I'm reading from Daily Post. He said, 2027, Jonathan has offered P2B ministerial slot to drop ambition. That's coming from Kachikwu. He said, Dumebi Kachikwu, former presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, has claimed that ex-President Goodluck Jonathan has proposed appointing P2B as coordinating minister of the economy on the condition that Obi withdraws from the 2027 presidential race and support his Jonathan's bid. He go further to say that addressing a press conference in Abuja on Friday, Kachikwu alleged that northern political forces enlisted Jonathan into the race as part of a plan to weaken the South's political influence. In order to weaken the South, they have now drafted in former President Jonathan into the race, who is alleged to be offering P2B the position of coordinating minister of the economy for him to support his ambition, he said. Kachikwu also alleged that Obi was told his chances of securing northern votes were slim solely because he is Igbo. A P2B has been told in very clear terms that he will never get northern votes as an Igbo man, and as such, he should accept to be Atiku's running mate, he added. Let us stop there for now. From what you can understand, there are already two instances, or there are two strategies. One is to make the man P2B deputize Atiku. The second one is to use a Jonathan and make a P2B to, of course, serve under Jonathan. Consider the fact that a P2B have good relationship with the man Jonathan, perhaps because there are way two options. That if the option of Atiku and Obi is not working in terms of president and vice presidential candidates, that they will now refer to using a Jonathan, because since a Jonathan have a cordial relationship with Obi. But again, I want to bring you another issue here. Let us look at what this tweet is talking about. Of course, this one is coming from Usman Isiaku. He said the Southern turn politics will backfire big time. He said the North gave Tinubu 63% of manipulated votes that put him in office using the Muslim deception. You go further to say that he's now playing a Southern game when the North starts doing its own regional and tribal politics. So from what he's saying, he doesn't know that currently the strategy of the man, who of course they see as a master strategist, is to even checkmate the manipulative tendency of the North to rig election through different areas that have been known as a hallmark. So maybe he should go and study the man who, of course, they call the master strategist. Because I don't think anything rigging will happen in the North if the North is not ready to go with him in terms of support. That's why I'm seeing it. But the way it is, I think the man Tinubu himself should even strive to restructure this country once and for all. Because we are seeing that the North, anything that threatens their grip on power, they are not always comfortable. I'm saying it particularly because recently we saw the proposal from the presidency talking about the tax reform bills. They not vehemently oppose it. And what those bills sought to do to address was to address the age-long imbalance, the age-long injustice in Nigerian wealth distribution. Talking about area of derivation, talking about area of consumption. We understand that in the past, when agriculture was the mainstay of Nigerian economy, when we had the era of granite pyramid, people or region or states were taking 50% of whatever comes from their region. This is part of the money the federal government will invest in terms of grants, in terms of fertilizer, to ensure that we have good harvest. Now, we have the oil that is mainstay of Nigerian economy. I understand that there is a 30% derivative that goes to oil producing states, but it's grossly inadequate compared to when states were taking 50% of whatever comes from their states. So I am of the view that Tinubu should use his office to restructure Nigeria, particularly because of the excesses of the Fulani herdsmen. Because if we have another Fulani man in power, it will be difficult to restructure Nigeria. This is the best time to restructure. Come to think of it, if the man, Gowon, had allowed Aburi Accord to stand, I don't think anybody will come in here to discuss issue of restructuring in Nigeria or even the current crisis we are having occasioned by excess of Fulani military. Because as it stands, Fulani military is a major problem in Nigerian system. So the way it is, the policy of 2027 is becoming more interesting because we are seeing more strategy. It's going to show that the North will not settle for anything that threatens their grip of power. It was even surprising recently seeing that the North is even blaming the federal government for out-of-school children in the North, especially where their leaders collectively failed to address it. We understand that when it comes to the issue of universal basic education, the responsibility to train the Nigerian child rests with the 3 tiers of government, talking about the federal, state, and local government. However, what behoves on the federal government to do is the policy direction and the funding. One that is provided, it is the state government and the local government that drive the process. I think that is what happens in the southern part of the country. So why is it that in the North you have the highest number of out-of-school children? It's a food for thought. And I think the northern leaders must go to the drawing board and address this. When we look at someone like the Sultan of Sokoto talking about the Sanusi himself, the former governor of Central Bank, it is part of the reason the people do not like him in the North. Because he speaks truth to power, He challenges the northern leaders about the neglect of the poor, about the neglect of educating the downtrodden in the region. So it's a major reason they do not reckon with him, they do not like him. And that's the truth. It's a bitter pill that the northern leaders must swallow. Because you cannot be putting blame of child education in the North on the federal government. Whereas in the South and the North, they operate on the same constitution. In the South, I'm not saying there's no out-of-school children in the South, but the number is insignificant compared to what we have in the North. Because in some places in the North, we are talking about 60% of out-of-school children. And when you talk about out-of-school children, you are talking about children that is within the age of 6 and 15. You have 60-something% of those that age bracket not in school. It's a recipe for crisis, if I tell you. You have, in some cases, you have 50-something%. In some cases, you have 40-something%. Talking about children between the age of 6 and 16 not being in school. You are making them vulnerable to be recruited into banditry. You are making them vulnerable to be recruited into Boko Haram. You are making them vulnerable to become terrorists. And at the end of the day, the Nigerian government was spending billions and billions of naira and dollar in fighting insurgency. Was it not even surprising that the governor of Zamfara State came up recently to admit that the bandits are people who are from his state, that they know them? He was lamenting about the limitation of his power to address it. The question is, at what point do we get to the level where people will be radicalized to the point that they will not take arms against their fellow citizens for no justifiable reason? Maiming, raping, taking people for ransom, as we have currently in some part of the country. And the reason this must be adequately and promptly addressed is before it takes its root in the south the way it is in the north. We understand that the magnitude of operation of the likes of Toji Bello and Ada Aleru have not gotten to the south in that magnitude. A situation where you would take people hostage, you demand for 1 million each, and about 18 people were able to pay. Those who were not able to pay were disallowed one after the other. You keep people, you disallow people as if they are ram. So the North must address this. And this is already an ideology issue, because the child you refuse to educate at the age of 6, grow into adulthood at the age of 18, is already available for any evil vice in the society. Because the psychologist says the newly born child, that the mind, the brain, is a tabula rasa. Until the can write anything he or she wishes to write. So if as a society, as guardian of the children, you refuse to write norms of the society by educating them, inculcating the right value system in their mind, in their brain, you will leave them for the bandits, for Boko Haram, for ISWAP, to write their own value system in their mind, in their brain. At the end of the day, they will become a menace and a problem for everybody. I think that's the major problem we're having. It's a bitter pill that the North must swallow. Because the way it stands, nobody will accept that after refusing to educate your children, after refusing to educate people who are from your region, you now import them into the southern part of the country to start maiming, kidnapping, raping. Is not acceptable. I could remember in the time of when Boko Haram was the operation was very high, how some people who were kidnapped and later released will confess that in the bush, in the enclave, they met their fellow classmates. So you got to show that the North must re-strategize. The North must sit back and look at where they are getting it wrong. Because the money that would have been used in infrastructural development would not be diverted to solving security problem. I can remember under the last administration of Muhammad Buhari, how the federal government withdrew $500 million to purchase 12 Tucano jets. That money could have been used for infrastructural development. That money could have been used to develop our healthcare sector. That money could have been used to develop our educational sector. But you cannot abandon insecurity problem and say you want to bring money to address all these other areas. Because before you can have an environment where you can do your infrastructure, go to school, go to hospital, you must have security of life and property. And if the reason we are not having that security of life and property is the inability of a people of a region to educate their children, I think somebody must say the truth, that the truth that you must, going forward, start educating your children. Start inculcating the right norms, the norms of society to them. not leaving them at the mercy of the bandits, of Boko Haram, of terrorists, to write what they wish in their brains, in their mind. I think it's a bitter pill that northern leaders have to swallow. I understand that the Emir of Kano, Sanusi, have been telling them, but it looks as if they are not. Because even currently, the out-of-school children in the north is at alarming rates. There's no justification behind having a state and you are having up to 60-something%, 50-something%, 40-something%, 30-something% as out-of-school children. Talking about children who are between 8 and 16 is unacceptable. Because it's a recipe for crisis. Because it is already a keg of gunpowder that will explode anytime. Of course, it's already exploded. That is why it must be given the urgent attention it deserves. Thank you very much. Please let me down. I'm so much.